What's up all you medical people? I don't know, it's a weird way to start a video. Do you watch Grey's Anatomy? That's a good one. I know an icicle fell on a guy's head in one of those episodes. That was pretty crazy. That was a lot of drama. Welcome back to Most Amazing. Here are the top 10 dark medical photos from history doctors never want you to see. I agree, it's pretty messed up. Let's do it. Number 10, the tonsil guillotine. I got my tonsils taken out when I was younger. I have no idea why. Everyone else has theirs, apparently, in the office, but comment down below if you still have your tonsils, because now I want to know, what's the ratio? Are you looking to get rid of your tonsils with one swift click? Oh boy. If this were the 1860s, the tonsil guillotine would have been your first and, well, your only option. And yes, it's as bad as it sounds. The tonsil guillotine. Oh, here we go. It looks like that one pair of tongs under the barbecue that nobody wants to use. Like that rusty surgical pair of tongs. They're like, ew, what's that? This rusty surgical instrument was essentially a pair of tongs, but on the inside, there was a curved blade that was placed around the tonsil, and then it was closed with one little click, cutting the tissue. Ideally cutting the tissue off easily. The tonsil guillotine was a controversial tool, obviously. It was often used without anesthesia and had a high risk of complications such as excessive bleeding, infection, and damage to surrounding tissue. Because yeah, obviously, our old rusty tool from the 8th century. Yeah, a rusty tool from the Victorian era. I'm like, yeah, don't put this in your mouth, please. As more modern surgical techniques and, of course, anesthetics became available, the use of the tonsil guillotine declined. Thank all of the gods for that. It's no longer used in modern medical practice. Oh, that's horrible. How do they do it when you're younger? I guess they just kind of, well, scissors, I guess. It's not better. It's definitely not better. Number 9, before and after. We'll do a palate cleanser after that last one because, well, that's grossing me out. There we go. This next one here, this is the photo of the first ever heart transplant survivor. Pretty amazing. You've probably seen it. Hopefully not, but maybe. Tadeusz is holding the photo of a lifetime here. National Geographic named it the photo of the year in 1987. Probably a photo of every year, to be honest with you. In the photo, we have Dr. Religa watching his patients just moments after completing the first ever heart transplant surgery in Poland, which took 23 hours. Yeah, in the lower right corner, one of his colleagues actually fell asleep right after the surgery. It was exhausting. I couldn't even imagine. Even though the surgery was considered almost impossible at the time, they somehow did it. Dr. Religa took the chances and the patient survived. The patient actually outlived his savior, which is incredible. Honestly, if you're a doctor or nurse or anything out there, like, whoo! Shout out to all the doctors out there. Y'all are crazy. Number 8, cataract surgery. Mr. Beast, I don't know, he's saving everyone's eyes. He made everyone unblind. I didn't even know that's possible. Cataract surgery is one of the oldest surgeries in the book. And, well, rather in the painting, I should say. It was found in a tomb in ancient Egypt. It was a painting of what is surely the oldest recorded eye surgery. And it doesn't look comfortable. The painting does not look like it was a relaxing time back then. Definitely not. Scientists are able to make this conclusion due to the length of the tool that this doctor is holding. They believe this was a method called couching. Yeah, we're gonna couch your eye. The guy's like, what? What's about to happen? It's gonna be so bad, isn't it? The needle here would push the cloudy lens to the bottom of the eye, ideally fixing their vision. It's much better looking on Reddit than how I'm describing it here with this old tool. The oldest tools found in Egypt tell us that 4,000 years ago, this was the first time that it had been done. But afterwards, evidence of couching was found all over the world. It wasn't until 1747 until Jacques Daviel, doctor in France, he performed the first ever cataract extraction surgery in a modern sense, without the big scary Egyptian needle, you know, without that one. Number 7, stitches. I'm totally gonna jinx myself, but I've never broken a bone or required stitches in my life. Yeah, knock on wood. I'm on high alert all the time. That's pretty much my life. Many of my friends have gotten stitches in their lifetime. It's pretty common. Maybe odds are you've had them as well. But going back to 3000 BC, you know, ancient literature times, stitches were a little bit different. They were made from plants, like hemp, cotton, or sometimes animal tendons. Animal arteries, catgut was common. That was thread made of sheep intestines. Very fun, very gooey, going through your arms. One of the craziest ways of closing a wound back then, believe it or not, was by using ants, or an ant's head, rather. Leafcutter ants or army ants would be held against this opening, and you'd wait for a little bit until this ant bit down. Now once it does so, you would remove the body. So yeah, sorry ant, didn't really work out this time, but we'll keep your head for now. And the head of the ant would be stuck biting on your cut, staying there until it heals. Yeah, imagine Ant-Man shows up to save the day, he just has a pocket full of these army ants. Not what I was expecting at all. Number 6, transplantation. Blood transfusion's one thing, but how the hell did we figure out transplants, right? That's some next level stuff. Who was the first guy to try that? The first successful one was back in 1954. It was in Boston at the Peter later bent Brigham Hospital. That was like a surgical procedure. The first successful one by any means came around 1000 BC. An Indian surgeon, Samhita, had written down details on how to transplant tissue from one area of the body to repair nose injuries. So yeah, if you hurt your nose, you can take a little bit of your hip, throw it up here. Also in the Renaissance Italy in the 16th century, there was a man named Gasparo Tagliacozzi. And finally, come the 19th century, first Nobel Prize winner on work related to transplantation was French surgeon Alexis Carrel. All these people changed the medical game. They literally took the impossible. They're like, let's just put skin over here and put it over there. And it worked. Now we're doing it every day. It's crazy. In 1902, they published their work on the new techniques using new studies on animals' blood vessels, and to this day that it's still used. In 1904, they partnered with Charles Guthrie in Chicago and performed the first successful animal transplant, saving the dogs' lives. Number 5, hernia. Ooh, this one's gonna hurt. When we think of modern medical problems and their surgical fixes, it can be hard to imagine how on earth people in ancient times dealt with similar problems. And I gotta say, hernias, that's definitely on the top of the list for how they do that. Imagine the first person to get a hernia. Oh no. Egyptian pharaohs had a group of physicians who worked hard to preserve the health of their ruler. And these physicians, of course, as anyone would hope, needed to have a vast knowledge on the body and how to treat different ailments. Now in the Egyptian tomb of Ankh-Mahor at Saqqara, which dates back to around 2500 BC, there's an illustrated sculpture of a surgeon, what is believed to be the reduction of a hernia. But it doesn't stop there as well. The mummy of Pharaoh Meneptah, as well as the mummified body of Ramses V, they both showed signs of surgery, likely an attempt to fix a hernia. And you can only imagine the tools that they used back then. Oh my gosh, I'm in pain thinking about it, actually. Number 4, mummification process. If you go to ancient Egypt and you see all these tools and artifacts, you gotta think to yourself, they actually used those back in the day. Those weird long pointy blades, yeah, it's gonna go up something you don't want it to go up. It was horrible. Many people with a limited knowledge of ancient Egypt, when they think about it, their minds go to pyramids and mummies, but really it's crazy medical knowledge. But they also thought of post-mortem dissection. You know what I mean? They also thought of mummification. They did pyramids and mummification. How they thought and did both successfully, well, we're still baffled by it. In order to mummify the body, they needed to remove any moisture from the body. This process included the removal of brain tissue, which was done through, well, quite a gruesome hook tool. It's one of those things you look through the glass and you're like, oh, that's scary. That would go in your nose to pull your brains out. It was horrible. This was not a medical practice. This was more of a spiritual one back then, so it wasn't performed by doctors, unfortunately. This is exactly why though, although they're getting extra close and personal with a person's internal organs during this entire process, the medical information they gathered during this process was never used for medical or medical advancement, which I thought was amazing considering the tools and what we're doing with them. But at the time, that's impressive. Number 3, nose jobs. Plastic surgery is more widespread now than it ever was beforehand, and it all started, as you guessed, with the ancient Egyptians, of course, the OGs. Although of course not in the same way that we think it, and do it today. In the Edwin Smith Papyrus, along with the documentation of trauma surgeries, bone fractures, fixes, and all of that, the text also showed us examples of fixes for nasal injuries, which is, again, so impressive. The treatment involved manipulating the nose into the desired position before using wooden splints. You would use wooden splints, lint, swabs, and linen plugs in order to hold it in place. I mean, it's like an ancient nose job, almost. That's pretty crazy. It's truly wild to think about how much the lives of these people helped shape our world today. Like, they had to go through the trial phase of a nose job. You know what I mean? That's incredibly hard to imagine. While so much of the civilization remains a mystery to us, what we do know helps inform us so much today. And we can breathe better. That's great. Number 2, fire drill. And not the drill that you think. This is a much different drill. This next one here, I mean, some of these methods were incredible because they worked. Egyptian plastic surgery, stitches, these were all steps in the right direction. In 3000 BC, we had no idea what cancer was or where to even begin to solve it. Cancer is something that's obviously very prevalent in our modern society today, and because of the rising rates, it makes us ask ourselves, did cancer exist in ancient times, or is this new? While they didn't call it cancer, it definitely did exist. Some of the earliest evidence of cancer is found in ancient manuscripts, mummies, and fossilized bone tumors that have been found in ancient Egypt. This is a big Egypt list, I love it. There are tons of examples and different forms of cancer that have been found throughout, but perhaps the oldest comes from 3000 BC. Again, that was found in the Edwin Smith Papyrus that we talked about before. In this text, it describes 8 cases of tumors or ulcers of the breast and how they treated them back then. And back then, again, it was a little different. Back then, these tumors were removed by cauterization using a tool called a fire drill. I don't know why I keep doing this, but I assume it's pretty heavy and it requires some movement like this. Other than this though, this text says in reference to the illness that there is no treatment. So yeah, thousands of years later, we're still working on it. Number 1, blood transfusion. All right, back around 70 AD, the Romans were pretty wild when it came to the Colosseum and the games that would go on. They would rush to the arena after the day and all the violence was done, not to get autographed, but to hopefully get a sip of that sweet gladiator blood. Because yeah, back then blood was considered a magical elixir. Then in the early 1500s, blood was seen as this like juice, like this youth juice that would make you young forever. I don't know. Some would drink blood as an elderly and then, well, nothing would happen, because obviously. Lots of theories surrounding blood. Yeah, in the Middle Ages, bloodletting was a go-to if you were sick because they thought that your humors were out of balance. So they're like, oh, we'll just get some blood out of you. Maybe you'll feel a little bit later. Yeah, wasn't a great plan. In 1628, blood circulation was discovered by a man named William Harvey. That changed the game, of course. Now the idea of something going into your bloodstream, that was in the picture, hypothetically, almost. So we started to test this out on canines. Scientists were injecting them with different substances, and slowly but surely, that turned into our modern day blood transfusion between canines and then eventually people. So this back in the 1660s, yeah, that's how early we started injecting things. Feels like a while ago, but it really wasn't when you think of ancient Egyptian nose jobs. You're like, oh, there's a big gap here in the medical knowledge world. I've been your host, Taylor McWaters. Keep being you. See you next time for some more dark medical tools and practices, and I'm gonna go throw up. See you.